On today's World Insight, China's commitment to carbon peaking in 2030 and carbon neutrality in 2060. The best way to do it? An environmentalist talks about the big data that lay the groundwork for the massive green effort.
From the major corporations, some of them are super large emitters. We need to figure out their emissions.
And a great time to celebrate International Day for Biodiversity, to respect nature's dwindling wealth of life. What better way to do this than with conservationist Steve McIver?
Hello, I'm Tian Wei, and this is World Insight. I'm standing here in a bustling intersection of a big metropolis during the rush hour. As the economies grow and people's lifestyle change, we are contributing ever more to the greenhouse gas emissions. As the economies grow and people's lifestyles change, they contribute to rising greenhouse gas emissions. No wonder global carbon dioxide emissions was about 34 billion tons in 2020. China was one of the biggest emitters, accounting for 27%. Now the country is on track to deliver on commitment of peaking carbon emissions by 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. While the world is watching China's strategy to achieve its green goals, it's crucial to find reliable data in drawing up an action plan. The key is to find who the emitters are, how much greenhouse gas emissions they belch out, and then find an applicable rule. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey to find the real answers. Who's gathering the data and what the numbers mean?
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for showing me around. I want to know your maps. Ma Jun is an insider. He is the director of the Institute of Public and Environment Affairs. The institute collects, collates, and analyzes raw information to build an environmental database, which includes carbon emissions of different places and enterprises in China. When you think about how to do a plan, a roadmap, what are some of the most important factors you need to consider in order to make that plan viable?
I think now we're having a 40-year-long commitment. I think we first need to understand what are the bases. What are we need to have the data, statistics of the current situation, and then we need to break that 40-year-long commitment into phases and set milestones. Yeah. And then we need to distribute all this mega national commitment to the local regions, provinces and cities. And then we need to distribute that down to major industries and carbon-intensive emitters. So there are all these things that we have to do.
Where are we now?
We're at the
very
sort of a beginning situation, because in the talking about the data, we're still not clear how much exactly we actually emit, because there's a difference in all these the statistics, and also even the methodology of accounting. There's so far not a consensus on that. So first we need to figure that out, and then try to distribute all this to different regions, and that part is still hasn't been done yet.
So China's approach, in your words, is still going to start from the central and top-down approach?
It will be, I hope it will be a combination of both the top-down approach and the bottom-up. Top-down is obviously we have our so-called national condition. This is we have the strength. Yeah. When we try to control the local air pollution control, we go through the top-down, sending tens of thousands of the inspectors across the country, and achieved a lot of results. But on the other hand, now it's with the slowing down of the economy and with the need of recovery, nationally and locally, I think it will be increasingly more difficult to try to rely solely upon the government administrative measures. So we need the other stakeholders to join the efforts. We need to have the especially the market-based solutions.
Yeah, but now we're still far from it, right? We still got the numbers that needs to be checked. Where are the numbers? What are these numbers that are important, and why do they matter?
Why do they matter? Because if we don't have a very clear and an accurate number, then if we want to, for example, one of the major way to control our emission is to create a national cap and treat market. But if we don't have the statistic, the big number, then we don't know what we are actually treating. We don't know the actual cap. So it's very difficult to do it.
So what are these numbers that we need to know? Given your example, I know you've been compiling these numbers for some time. What are these numbers and why are they crucial?
The number that we're compiling is on the national level, on the provincial, city level, all this carbon emission and carbon and greenhouse gas emission number, and then the data on the energy consumption or different fossil fuel consumption, and then the emission data from the major emitters, from the major corporations. Some of them are super large emitters, so we need to understand. We have millions of them,
right.
And so we need to figure out their emissions.
Where do you get these numbers?
These numbers has been published before, but in many cases not digitized on the yearbook here and there on some sort of academic paper. So what we do is we work with our partners to digitize that and develop and published a low carbon map database to help people visualize on a mapping system.
But aren't these numbers all out of date?
They are. They're being updated every year. We try to help people access the year-on-year data.
How would you trust them, the numbers that they provide on their own?
Yeah, I think this is the best quality data that we can access at this moment. What we hope to achieve is that we can't say this is 100% accurate, but we hope to put them there so that all the different stakeholders could review them, and if anyone has different opinions, then we can have a deliberation over that. But we can't say that sorry, we just don't know the data. We can't trust any data. Then we cannot get actually started.
China's emission trading system, also known as the National Carbon Market, is expected to be launched soon. It creates the world's largest carbon market, which lays a solid foundation for low-emission transition. Currently, more than 2,000 fossil fuel-powered enterprises have signed up. The basic framework of the new carbon trading system is quality data on emissions. And on that, Ma Jun showed me their blue carbon map at work.
This is the carbon map database that we compiled from the different sources. And on this map, we can see for example, the city of Beijing. We can allow people to view its emission data from 2005 all the way to 2020. And then we see another real front runner in China, and the Pearl River Delta, the city of Shenzhen, has made
doing pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of progress made on low carbon. So we can see the carbon emission going down in Shenzhen.
So they already peaked in a way.
They already peaked. Yeah, our analysis showed.
So these are the cities that are doing pretty well, right?
Yes.
What about those that are still on their way?
Yeah, we do have those cities. We do compile the data. Take a take a look at the city on the western part of China, and the city of Ordos, with a lot of coal power and energy-intensive industries being relocated there, and we can see the emission data is going up quite rapidly.
Look at that trend.
Yeah, look at this trend, and obviously our energy-intensive industries are moving inland. Are also our coal power base are shifting. And based on all this data, we have developed a carbon peak index. Again, taking Beijing as an example, we can see all this very year-on-year data from 2005 to 2020. Basically, Beijing is on track to peak at this moment. And Shanghai, although its total emission is still quite large, but it's also, we view that as on track. Picked up last year, but in the meantime, we're also feel quite interested that in Shanghai, the city decided to project its peak to 2025. We trust that it can peak probably earlier than that. This is the city of Tangshan, and we can see that the city actually peaked 2014, but ever since then it dipped, but then rebound pretty dramatically. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the total crude steel output has been increased by, for the first time, topped 1 billion tons for the first time. That is more than 60% of the global total output. And Tangshan is the largest steel manufacturer in China.
So that's quite problematic, isn't it?
It's quite problematic.
So you got the cities all mapped up, the locality. What about from the enterprise's perspective?
When it comes to companies, the data is also very important, because eventually we need to reduce their emission, but we need to understand the basic carbon footprint. So we started compiling this data, although there's no mandatory compulsory requirements for disclosure. But we're happy to see 5 provinces already started requiring for this disclosure, and we compile those data. And in the meantime, all these blue dots are the other companies that already disclose their data. But when we zoom in, we can also see many orange dots.
Right.
Actually, more orange dots.
What do they stand for?
They stand for the companies that have not yet disclosed their carbon data. And all these orange dots are the companies with rather big energy consumption and emission.
So you know all of them?
We know all of them. We're tracking altogether 8.9 million companies in China.
That's a hell of a data.
A lot of data. We know their name, their geolocation, and their industry. And we also have 2 million records.
Now these data are all voluntary provided?
All this data are coming from 4 major sources. First, the official sources from various ministries, a dozen ministries, especially from the Ministry of the Environment. And then it also comes from the self-monitoring and reporting by the corporations.
I see.
And another major motivator is those brands, multinational and local brands, who drive their suppliers to come to us to disclose. And then now increasingly some of the financial institutions still also drive for that. For example, listed companies started to be required to disclose their information. But still, many of them lack the basic capacity to figure out, to measure their data. So to facilitate that, on this map, we have developed a tool which can help them basically to do the corporate greenhouse gas emission accounting in a digital way. This is going to reduce the cost and also make it very, very efficient.
This is a lot of work, I have to say, Mr. Ma. The blue carbon map shows us both positive and negative data, presenting both opportunities and challenges on the road to carbon neutrality. What exactly needs to be done? What happens to fossil fuel enterprises? And what about the future of millions of people working in these industries?
It's quite clear that the leader of China have expressed that we have heard the concern from the other part of the world, that is the coal power. Our coal power is still growing, and behind that, the carbon footprint is still expanding. I have to put it into historic perspective. From 2000 to 2012, China's coal consumption tripled, more than tripled. But ever since China initiated this Clean Air Action Plan from 2013, the whole coal consumption got stagnated, dipped first, but rebounded over the past 2-3 years. It concerned the other part of the world. It also concerned us, because this is not just going to lead to a growth of our carbon emission, but also it will impact the hard-won achievement of our air pollution control.
Why did we see some progress? Is it due to the merits of the Clean Air Act from the very beginning?
Yeah, this progress is because the emission source from the for both the air pollution, local air pollution, and the carbon emission is coming from mostly the same sources, the fossil fuel and the industrial emission. So by tackling these sources for our clean air action, help to check the vast growth expansion of carbon emission. I think that's we have to keep in mind. It's a huge contribution to the global fight against climate change. Having said that, it's still not enough. We're still burning half of the world's coal, while the rest of the major emitters in Europe and in America, while they continue to reduce the use of coal power, our coal power is still growing. So
why is that?
It's because first, we're still going through this industrialization and urbanization. We're in a different development phase. But to add on that, it's the slowing down of the economy since 2018, and then the trade war, and then the pandemic hit, have caused some quite a few local government try to relax their environmental control, and they try to jumpstart their local economy. So we have seen a rebound, and I think that's quite worrisome. So we're actually facing the headwind. After the commitment was made by President Xi last September, there's a whole new dynamic in China, from the central government agencies to local government to the major state-owned enterprises and all the investors and financial institutions in China. They all started to review this situation and make their own political statement. So that's very positive. But with that, we're still facing a headwind.
The 30 million people who has their livelihood related to the coal industry, upswing, downswing. So what does that mean, really, when China wants to say, reduce as much as possible the carbon from the coal industry, from the coal fire plants?
I think this is a transition that we need to manage properly. But we have some good experience. For example, as I mentioned, the vast expansion of the coal power industries have been checked. The coal consumption has been checked for the local air pollution control. The reason is because we obviously value the health and life and health of our people, and air pollution has exposed hundreds of millions of Chinese people to the health risk caused by this. So I think this is what we are considering first, and then we can subsidize the phasing out of this industry, rather than just because otherwise we don't have to put huge, enormous amount of money to try to clean them up. Right. But instead of doing that, well, we can use this money to try to cushion the impact on the livelihood of those workers related to this industry.
There is an apparent phenomenon. You talked about that with me earlier, off the record, that you have seen an increase of coal-fired power plant just to make more space for localities once the carbon trading starts. How do you see this phenomenon? I mean, is there a way to prevent that from further happening?
Yeah, I think this is a wrong incentive scheme that we are at this moment hugely concerned about, because of the expectation that one day there will be a tighter control over for example, the coal power industry, some energy intensive industries, and some of the many local regions now started considering that they probably need to expand this industry so that they can get more space for future growth. And whenever there's a tighter control, then they can more easily scaling down. They can more easily slide down and from a very high peak. But that's a kind of artificially made high peak. And this is going to cause huge trouble for our carbon neutrality mission, which is the real end goal.
Is there a way of dealing with this?
Yeah, I think we need to, in some way, level the playing field. The concern is that if I don't expand now, but my neighbor is going to grow, then in the future performance review, I will be disadvantaged. So I think at this moment we need to develop a scoring index to make sure that everyone will be reviewed in a fairer way. Not just taking into account of their GDP growth, but also taking into account of the quality of their carbon peak.
But once some of these coal-powered plants being built, it's likely that they will have to function for more than a decade because of the huge amount of money and investment put into it. So it's hard to imagine that once the picture, as you described, will be suddenly switched off.
There's a real risk that one day, in China, we have to do it for our domestic reason, or for the global fight against pollution. So those coal power plants, at least they need to function 30 years before they can actually make
even longer than I know.
Yeah, even longer. So that will lead to a lot of the so-called stranded assets, meaning that they will become bad assets. So the bad debt, and those financial institutions who foot all this project gonna suffer from huge losses. So I think the central bank in China and those our financial institutions got quite concerned about this prospect. So how do we develop policy to help them, put more money behind the renewable? We need to recognize, yes, coal power, we have the resource and we have the advantage, but overall the life cycle, impact is huge, on the health side, on the environment side, on the climate side.
Right.
If we factor them in, then they will become increasingly not competitive.
That's what I want to ask you. Is there all set standard that everybody would agree upon or accept in China regarding the emissions and regarding the ESGs? Is there something like that?
The emission side, on the emission side, yes, the Ministry of Environment and Ecology have developed all these cross-the-board standards that we all need to comply with.
Yeah.
That has been done, but on the ESG standards for green investment, that part is still being developed and has yet to be accepted by all. Encouragingly, we have seen a good trend, because as an organization that owns compiled the so-called largest gathering of all this environmental data, we have been approached by several dozen financial institutions for the access of this data. And one of the major goals is to help figure out the ESG performance of those corporations.
But there are others who are also doing their own standards of ESG as well.
There are many different versions, yeah, but the base data, more or less, eventually, I believe it's going to be the same. Because all this monitoring data, what we are gathering now every day, it's 3 million emission data plus 500,000 air and water quality data. Yeah. All this base data, it's eventually, no matter your local agency or global agency, you all need to tap into this data, because that will help your assessment become far more accurate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ma.
Thank you.
As the old Chinese saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Ma Jun and his colleagues are taking that first step, gathering data bit by bit to paint the big picture. Without valuable data, there's no reality check. Without a grip on reality, there's no actionable plan. Make no mistakes, China is pulling out all the steps to cut greenhouse gas emissions. And in our future programs, I will bring you the latest on these green efforts. This year, we will have a series of environmental protection programs on carbon emission reduction, biodiversity, and sustainable development. That is our commitment, and we will urge you to do your part too in saving our planet.